I'd like to call to order the November 30th, 2023 work session. All rise, please. Face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call.
Martin Howe,
Present.
Will Hyman.
Here.
Mark Jackson.
Here.
Wayne Ward.
Here.
Patty Wright. Vice Mayor Ripple.
Here.
Mayor Mappinger. And
Here.
Patty's on her way.
Okay. Discussion items. I'm sorry.
Do we want to wait 5 minutes for Hattie?
You wanna wait? She's gonna get out of $200. That goes into Martin's Christmas fund.
Does it just roll? Wayne's goes to hers, that's 400?
That's 400, yeah.
Collecting interest.
Yeah, we'll wait a couple seconds here.
I don't think it's that close.
Richard, how are you, sir?
Superb.
Miss Kim? It's beginning to look alive. And where's Santa Claus at downstairs? What happened to him?
Put Santa Claus down.
No, the big one downstairs. What happened to him?
Budget. Exploding.
We're trying to
I hope you didn't sell him.
We're trying to find him. Yeah, we're getting.
Are you serious?
He's in the
lost.
basement.
Let's go. Let's find Santa Claus. I'm gonna break his neck. You ever seen it? Oh my God, he's like size of that big around. Oh, it's great. How big around? Not that big around. He's huge. I should have him back. Everybody else must be at light up right before. Jeez, 37 years. There you go. Check payable to the city of Clarksburg. Thank you. 5:30 is 5:30, not 5:40, not 5:50.
Don't worry, I didn't realize
this
it
is
was
not
5:30
Atlanta.
until quarter
This
to.
is not Atlanta.
Right. Sorry, guys.
No, Elena's
I
not.
apologize.
Okay, discussion items. A, auctioning the former city hall lot located on the corner of West Pike Street and Third Street.
This was Councilmember Worth who asked.
This is something that I requested to put on the agenda. We probably about maybe a couple months ago, we had August 17th, maybe a few months ago. We had an ordinance that was going over a resolution. Well, it was an ordinance that would lease that lot to the Gore Locks, and that measure failed. In some of my council comments, I didn't really believe that the city should have, be leasing, assets or properties that where their intended use is not necessarily parking, and having private entities redevelop that property, for a cost that maybe, with the cost of inflation over 20 years, we weren't going to make anything out of. So I didn't propose, but I said, my opinion is that we should auction it. So since it hasn't been discussed, I wanted to bring it up to see how everyone felt about, auctioning that, that city lot, because the thing is, we have someone that apparently wants to make use of it. And at the same time, we really haven't had much of a development plan for it for the last, 16, 17 years since we've, since the old city hall was demoed. But I want to get your thoughts on it, your all's thoughts on it, before I request the city manager to look into maybe drafting an ordinance or whatever to put this up for auction. Just want to see how everyone felt on it, about that.
Well, me personally, I was in
I was all in line with the Gore, getting that and developing it as a parking lot. Basically, it's a piece of property that we've had that's sat idle for 17 years. And, how much inquiry have we had on that property since then? None?
I don't think it was ever advertised properly. We talked about that. Actually, I wanted to put the survivor tree there, and I got voted down. And then, my God, that's been how many years ago? In that 5, 6, 7 years ago. My feelings are, I think that that URA ought to put it up, because that could be a valuable piece of property to somebody. And to give it away for $20,000 over 20 years, that's, to me, that's ludicrous. That's a valuable piece of property.
I don't see that, because basically it's set right there on the corner. Most times I think a corner lot would be valuable, but there's no parking there. If you were to put a business there, where would they have parking?
Well, they have parking on 3rd Street. They got the parking garage.
All the places
there's
that people
parking
complain now
available.
that they don't want to walk to because it's too far.
Well,
So can I make a suggestion for council? One, I think the first thing that council needs to do, no matter if you lease it or give it to the URA to auction off, is appraisal needs to be done. There was an appraisal done in 2007. It is not relevant. Now we're in 2023, almost 2024. So that would be my first suggestion that I do, if council's all right with that. Just get an appraisal for the lot.
There's another appraisal, 2016, I think. There's another appraisal
Could
done.
you find it?
Okay.
what was the ballpark on that? Do you remember what was the one that you're talking about?
The 2007, it's interesting because most of the comparables came in at 84 to 85,000, and yet on this appraisal from 07, it came in at 255. And we can't understand why the appraisal, that number came out, because generally comparables are pretty close. And it's a small lot. It's 9,100 square feet, I think is what it is. So if council would like me to get appraisal, I will do that. The only thing I would caution about auctioning it off is if you auction off and someone does buy it, it can sit vacant for another 17 years. The only advantage I see to leasing it is, in the end, the city still owns it. So it's an asset to the city that is being upgraded with infrastructure. That is now what council's the ultimate decision maker in this process. If council can hold on to an asset like that, whether it's leased or not, and it's upgraded, it's still an asset to the city and the ratepayers of Clarksburg. What I would hate to see is if it's auctioned off and it sits vacant for another 2 decades.
And we have one problem that Clarksburg has, is we have a lot of people that sit on property. That is one thing that they're not active. So, I would be all about auctioning it, taking it out of our hands, and to where politics don't really play a favor. But this is one time we look at the big picture. We can look at the whole grand scheme of things. If we are helping a business like that downtown, then I was even driving up Pike Street, and I saw like a couple lights on up on the Gorlux building, and Christmas trees in the windows. Like, that's what we're going to be getting, helping them increase their people living there, because people don't want to walk too far where they live at. That's just, we're not New York City. We've got to get away from that reality. And so we look at the big picture. We can do something with an empty lot, which I don't think anything else is going to happen. We could auction it off and then somebody else sit on it.
If we give it to the URA, doesn't the next door property owners, don't they get the right of first refusal to?
No, that's for when it's on the demo list with the land bank.
Okay.
But the URA doesn't fall under the
Is the
same
land bank an
regulations.
option to put it in the land bank?
No.
Yes.
I would agree with, I'm thinking you're saying URA, and Jimmy said it, but I think the route to go is the Urban Renewal Authority. Give it to them, let a redevelopment plan be advertised or drafted, advertised. It's a process, but I think it's well worth it. That way you're controlling the RFP. When they respond, they have to then put who it is that the entity, what they're planning on putting in there. They're telling you the cost they're paying or cost they're leasing, what the project costs. So the URA then can determine what the best fit is for that property based upon the responses to it.
Is there a timeline on that?
There
Like,
is.
say, there is, okay.
Yeah,
So-
they would just set the timeline, so they could give it 2 months for their RFP be open, 1 month, whatever.
Yeah.
But, I think, I
And then
would,
what happens if that owner doesn't follow through with that?
the property's on, ultimately transferred to them.
Okay.
But
So, and just an example, the URA did several redevelopment plans over the years. That's how Adamston Flat was developed. We did a RFP for that, and ultimately came out with the developer there. But council, manager, economic development, everybody's got to be proactive to find people who are interested in that to submit proposals for it.
But if we start putting all these guidelines on what the property can and can't be used for, then that's going to basically limit the people who are actually looking or maybe interested in looking at the property. But if someone else buys it and they say, well, you know what, I'm just going to put a parking lot here and lease it to the Gorlux. We're saying, okay, well then why don't we just lease it to the Gorlux?
Well, but I myself, I think, the best use would be another business for downtown.
Absolutely.
Obviously, I think the Gore Lux has a legitimate reason why they want it, but I think income producing is that ultimately the best use? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out.
Plus, Mark, if they're willing to pay $20,000 over how many years, and it's valued at 85, I'm going the route of the 85.
Okay, but we've got somebody who's invested $3 million in a building and they're bringing the people into town who are spending money in the economy here in town. We got to look at the real big picture of this. We got 85, but we've also got luxury apartments over here with doctors and lawyers and such in there. Let's look at the real big picture here. If we're going to auction it off, then why put all these parameters? Well, we're going to auction it, we'll sell it to you, but you can't use it for this or that or this or that.
Well, to be clear, I'm not for auction. I'm for a redevelopment plan. So, I think that's a major difference because auction, you're not controlling who gets that property.
I think
Highest bidder gets it.
I'm against auction too.
And that's fine. I think
No,
that's
the
why-
URA gets to choose, even if they put it up for sale, they can choose who to sell it to based on the plan.
Correct.
My opinion is there is a lot of derelict buildings downtown that to say you want something built on an empty lot, that's a great plan, but we already have all these vacant buildings where those aren't being utilized either to their fullest potential. So that should come into the equation as well. And I'm not saying for or against the Gorlux and their proposal, but again, I am firmly of the opinion if you can do something with that land, but ultimately retain ownership of it as a council, in my opinion, council should take that into consideration.
So
I see what you're saying. I'm really liking Martin's idea a little bit better because at least if we give it to the URA, there's a redevelopment plan. If it does get sold to someone, the property doesn't get transferred to that entity unless they have a plan to make that happen. So essentially,
Right.
no one's going to buy it and sit on it for 20 years. No, I'll change my stance on this auction it off because you're right, we don't have much control. And the reason why I brought this up on the agenda to begin with is because we don't really have any kind of plan for that property. And it's time to either or get off the pot. And so I would definitely be in favor, if the URA coming up with some sort of redevelopment plan. That way we have at least a little bit of control of if someone is interested in buying that property, since we're going to be marketing that after we develop a plan for it, that it just doesn't sit there once it's purchased. It doesn't sit there for 20 more years.
And this gives the Gorlux a chance to be the owner.
So the URA, if it went to the URA, they wouldn't create the development plan. They would get RFPs and then choose.
Well, they could do either way. They could create the redevelopment plan and say you have to meet this parameters of what we're looking for, which could be wide scope or very narrow, whatever they decide. Or they could just send out a general RFP to say submit the proposals based upon how you want to do it, ground lease, own it, what your development plan is for the property, what your purchase price is, or lease. And then they're not comparing apples to apples. They don't have to go with the highest
No, they don't.
purchase.
And
They
that
can
idea
choose
is
the best
actually,
use.
that is a valid idea, because I'm not in favor of creating a redevelopment plan for that lot. But I would like to open it up, if that's what council decides, to see what type of creative ideas come in for it. To me, that's much better than us setting the standard of, because we're not responsible if that business succeeds or not, right? So if we say we want this type of business in here, well, maybe nobody's interested in that type of business. But if you open it up wide open, people can say, well, I want to put this here, and then the UR can decide, well, this is what we believe fits best into downtown.
So is there like a basic template of what the CBD in that area right there what it would look like, that development plan from the
No, if you open it up, what the third suggestion Mark's made, people would actually submit their proposals. Like, I would like a 5-story boutique hotel. Not that that would fit on there, but then you could actually look at what people were thinking would fit for that lot. I would like a parking lot because I own this building, we're buying this building, we have apartments, we own these businesses. This is the amount of revenue we're expected to bring in. We need this to park 20 people. Then the UR is making the decision of the validity of the application.
And ultimately, maybe they deny them all. But I mean, it's an attempt. I can tell you, in the past, there was interest in that lot. One for housing. Somebody had ideas of like townhomes with up parking underneath. I mean, there's another
Dentist office.
dentist office was
Mhm.
one, and I mean, we had several, but just
whatever route we go, I want us to do it now.
Well,
I
I
want
would
us
like
to get
some.
it started tomorrow. I want us to get a plan and move forward, and I want that lot to have something.
I would like direction from, or consensus from, at least the majority of council, that this is the direction we'd like to move in.
I don't like auction. I think that might
now conversely, since we want to talk about the POTUS, do you have any maybe a use for it?
No, I'm fine with the URA redevelopment plan, and that's totally fine.
When's the URA meet again?
What is that, second Tuesday?
14th. Okay. I mean, we should know something by the end of the year. If the URA's meeting on the 14th and
Know what if they want to do it?
if they want to do that, yeah.
I think you're directing them to do it, but
Yeah, we won't have an answer on. who
No,
the
I'm
lot
not
goes to,
saying,
but
I'm
we
not
can-
saying,
I can at least move the process forward if this is kind of the direction that council's going in.
I like that direction.
I do too.
Hattie,
So,
That's a good compromise.
Jerry?
Okay.
You guys,
I can work with it.
Sounds
Let's do
okay. B, private outdoor designated area, PODAs.
So, Councilmember Worth asked for this to be put on the agenda. I've given a little bit of background on it. I sent a website out, one of the cities in West Virginia that's done it. I've also given out a map. This is the first go around for the suggested area. I would ask that if council has any suggestions on how that should be changed, let me know. And if council's all right with it, I will work with the city attorney to come up with the ordinance and bring it back to a council meeting for a vote.
My first question would be Chief Kitty, his opinion on this. Your opinion on this, issues that you will see.
Well, a
Or,
lot of regulations they have to follow. I don't know if they make rental of these, but they have to follow state codes, state law, ABC rules. You can't sell alcohol, certain hours. I know Huntington, Charleston, I think Huntington's only doing it from May to October. And their times are like 6 in the evening till 10 at night on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I don't think it'd be a good thing every night of the week. I don't see the purpose of it in downtown Clarksburg because we don't have a area that, one block area without side heating and entertainment. I mean, I can't see people walking from Washington Square to Paula Cannon's Robson Brand just so they can carry an open alcohol container. Plus the businesses have to purchase certain plastic cups with the emblem. They have to have a security plan. They have to provide a way to keep people on their premises that don't leave with open containers. There's a lot to it. That's my opinion, of course.
And I think that's a valid point, because, I mean, you look at the outline there, how many establishments are in that area that serve alcohol? With excluding the Robinson Grand, 3? Are there 3? I mean, there's Washington Square, Kelly's.
I mean, you're looking at Huntington and Charleston's a lot different.
Sure.
Bigger and it's a lot different area.
Yeah, I look at, when I looked at this, I thought, okay, good idea, but maybe it was a cart before the horse thing, because, we may have 3 establishments. The one thing that I do like about it is that it does have pretty strict guidelines and codes that go with it. Now, how I think it would really be best utilized, I'm with the chief. I mean, it shouldn't be something that we have every evening, but it was something throughout the summer that you had, on Friday and Saturday evenings, maybe between 5 and 11. I look at what Huntington has done with their Ninth Street Live. I don't know if you all ever been down to Huntington, the Ninth Street Plaza, but for a long time, there was really nothing going on there. You had the Cabell County Library, and you had, maybe a few law offices, and this was probably before Pullman Square was developed. In the CBB, before the CBB had their business incubator developed there at the old railroad station. But the thing is, now where things are happening in downtown, you have a Kindred Communications that runs 93.7 The Dog and 97.9 The River. That's just to name a few radio stations, and they're literally throughout the whole summer, every Friday, they're having they're having a concert series down there where people could, come down there and enjoy themselves. And I just think like the POTA, POTA works down there specifically for this Ninth Street Live. So if you're on 4th Avenue and you're getting a beer at St. Mark's and you want to go down to Ninth Street and maybe get a glass of wine at the Sit Bercier down there, on Ninth Street or the Hall of Fame Cafe, you can do that and watch a show. I look at that as saying, well, if we had something like that for First Friday, that might help, generate more folks to come to First Friday. Now, I don't think our city is really equipped to have, maybe an outline like what Huntington has, and Huntington was very strategic. They didn't, from 16th Street to 20th Street, where Marsh University is, and I mean, right across the street from Joan Edwards Stadium, you have, 20th Street Bar and Grill and some other bars. They didn't designate that area for that because I think they wanted more of that college crowd to come to downtown, even in the summertime, when they have summer school there. But we're not a college town, but I think for First Friday's sake, when I looked at this, that's what I thought of. I thought maybe we could do something like this on a small scale, or at least talk about it. But I think I first wanted to discuss it with council, but my recommendation would be is to discuss it with, Matt Policano and some of the other folks that, own some of these establishments and see if they want to do this, because if they don't want to do it, it doesn't happen.
So they've talked about that, and everybody's interested in looking at it. I don't think this is ever putting the cart before the horse. You don't know the effect until you try it.
Yeah.
And if you say, well, we're going to wait till downtown's more developed, this could actually encourage development.
Yeah.
So I would suggest that council at least tries it out.
And I think if the chief feels like they can enforce it, if there's certain days, 'cause we don't, on Tuesdays, we don't have that many people working, or certain, we don't want to be shorthanded in making sure we have an officer watching that when we have the rest of the city. But if there's Thursday, Fridays, and Saturdays, then that's something we can have an officer there. We have to be able to enforce it. And at the end of the day, this is something, if it doesn't work, we can stop it. Right?
Well, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
That's what I'm saying.
Be nothing
So-
to stop.
Yeah.
I mean,
On weekends, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, you discussed before about like closing down 4th Street, having tables out there and stuff. That's something a little bit different, it's more contained. I mean, I'm just talking, if you go from, say, Washington Avenue over to Glen Elk, I mean, that's kind of opened up a little bit, you know. It's just something you really gotta look into. There's a lot of restrictions, you have a bathroom on premises. There's a lot of things you gotta follow. But can it work? Yes. But
It may even help with the Robinson Grand, and as far as the dining, like people might be more encouraged to come and dine and get drinks and then, go to a show and walk to the show with their open container.
I think it's a great idea too, to, just open up, make another avenue, possible for the businesses that we do have, Harts, Polycanas, Washington Square. Maybe right now it's not on their radar, but if we pass something like this, it's amazing how people can make things happen. I mean, Polycana's got a little parking lot over there. I guarantee the people who go to his place, if he decided that he was going to have some outside activities like that, I guarantee that could happen. Washington Square, same thing. So, I mean, what would it hurt to take a look into this, and at least consider making this an option that's available for the businesses that are here in our city?
And I think it's worth a shot. And I think at the end of the day, too, when I'm looking at the 9th Street Live plan in Huntington, I mean, that just used to be a desolate area. Now, you have, a big organization like Kindred Communications that's putting a lot of money, into that venue. You look at, what Buchanan's doing, at Jawbone Park, although I don't think they don't have a POTA there. Huntington's the only one, and Charleston's the only ones that have that right now. But here's an opportunity to maybe, you could get, an organization, especially if we're on this on-track Main Street thing, to get more sponsorships for First Friday and get more people to come to First Friday, to where, maybe 2 or 3 years down the road, we can make this an every Friday event that has not only the financial support, but also a lot of the, it's just a way to make our downtown vibrant, But I'm with the chief. I mean, we can't extend it from downtown to Glen Elk or wherever. I mean, it has to be concentrated, to where there's some sort of control. And Huntington did a good job with that. I mean, they don't really deviate too much, between, 8th Street and 10th Street. I mean, there's still some other areas that are kind of just a little teeny bit off the beaten path, but those are areas around the CBD and around the Civic Center, for different events like that. So it's mainly concentrated in Huntington, around the downtown, around Pullman Square, and around all those bars and all those shops. And I think we could concentrate it here and not have it as frequent. I think it may be able to work, but at the end of the day, if the business owners, if they say this is too stringent, they don't want it, it doesn't happen. So, but it's worth exploring.
I mean, I like it. I just, I don't know. I kind of resonate with the fact that it is kind of putting the cart before the horse. If we had, a thriving bar district where you could, pub crawl and go from bar to bar, and that's just, it's a pretty far walk from Washington Square to the Robinson Grand. I mean, I could drink a couple drinks between there and then, but I don't know.
I mean, you got to think Huntington has 6 bars that are participating in this, with a city of 49,000.
6, huh? That's it.
That's it.
Wow.
Yeah, but those six bars are pretty well concentrated.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it really complements like some of our events that we want to do, and it may create more events, in our downtown. So that's just my opinion. But I just don't want it to be spread out like wildfire to where you can't enforce, where it's hard to enforce.
Mr. Howell, you have any?
I'm not opposed to it. I mean, we have 6 in this proposed district.
What else is there? I guess
Robinson Grand, Ritzy, Washington Square, Kelly's, Bluebird, and Hart's Kitchen.
I do factor in Ritzy's or the Bluebird. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's.
So you want me to bring?
Well, I like this idea. I personally think that it should be from 2nd Street to 6th Street and from Main to Pike, starting out, and see how it goes.
We'll have to brown paper bag it, I guess.
Well, I mean, you
Brown
know,
paper bag, walk around with it.
Will, you've been brown bagging it for 10 years. What the hell, what's the difference now, huh?
You can already brown paper bag it though, the ice plant already. You gotta have 1 foot up against the wall though.
I mean, he stops at the ice plant and walks all the way up here from the ice plant with a brown bag.
Is that what I saw through the trash?
Well, I mean, let's have the city manager draw up some options here and you know, I think keeping it within the parameters of Main and Pike Street might help develop, like we thought we were going to have a brewery at the old J.C. Penney's building. And, you know, that might entice some interest in some of these other vacant buildings downtown. So let's have the city manager draw up.
Can we extend it over to Washington Avenue? Washington Square.
I will bring a couple options
Okay.
to the council meeting for council to come to a consensus on what they think the initial area should be, if council's all right with that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Next, C, B&O tax credits to facilitate redevelopment of historic structures.
Can you bring up John Whitmore for this, please?
Mr. Whitmore, please. Thank you, sir.
Good evening. This is a draft ordinance to provide for 2 different types of tax credits associated with business and occupation tax. They relate to historic structures. In particular, this would be for the downtown historic district, the Glen Elk Historic District, and Quality Hill to a certain extent. In particular, the idea of this is a genesis of working with the ownership team of the Empire Nesting Out LLC. When we first met with them, they had discussed that there was an issue when it came down to financing redevelopment. In particular, they have an existing tenant. If there was a way to facilitate that tenant to be able to receive some kind of tax incentive to stay in the structure during redevelopment, because with the Empire, it will be an extensive redevelopment to bring it up to modern codes. That kick-started a lot of discussion and just general conversation regarding the types of programs we could provide for historic structures. So the information provided tonight would be new sections of Article 745.45, K and L. K is the Historic Structure Construction Activity Tax Credit. This would allow for a B&O tax credit for building improvements to a structure and surrounding parcel located within the Downtown Historic District, Glen Elk Historic District, or Quality Hill Historic District that is a pivotal or contributing structures. When that language is used, that's the actual the historic property registration. The registry defines those. Those pivotal structures, those are the ones that establish the historic district. The contributing ones, they're the ones that still look like a historic building, but they may not have all the same architectural features as, say, the Waldo, the Empire, or the building across the street. The other real impact of this is that there was concern that if we opened it up to every type of structure, there may be an incentive for some developers or landowners to take advantage of the tax credit. So there's a provision that would make it that the construction value from materials and labor for the historic tax credit would be at 3% of the most recent fair market value of the structure as determined by the assessor's office. So to give an example, the golf building, I believe the last appraisal only had that in 5 figures. That structure is low value. It needs a lot of work for it to be completely used. Other historic structures in the downtown have higher values. I'm trying to think of some of them, but to give an example, the Gore Lux. I mean, that one has much higher value. It's also more occupied than the golf. This provision would have a situation where those structures that don't have high value, you can put a lot more money into the structure not have to pay the B&O on the actual construction activities. So in theory, you're putting money into the building, it'll have a higher assessment value, and you'll be able to recoup property taxes and have the benefit of having a property now that was vacant, occupied, or at least in a better state. Then finally, there is a little carve out to make sure that it's not being used for residential only parcels, that it is going to our commercial building stock. Then the next one, L, that's the historic structure continuity of operations tax credit. That one is based on the idea of trying to preserve the tenants. So in the case of the Empire, it would be allowing, in this case, MVB Bank to be able to recoup their B&O tax activity. So that's the 100% of business and occupation tax arising from banking or other financial institutions, specifically for MVB would be, that's H. That would then allow for their activities to continue during the construction process. There is where is it? Trying to find it. I'm not seeing it. Okay. Okay. So then there is they have to be able to provide that there is a hardship that's occurring, and then there is the ability for the tax credit. So once the improvements were made, the hardship would end. They would no longer be eligible for tax credit. Now, naturally, Mr. Marsh may have some additional comments on the actual ordinance language, any specific tune-ups, but just if there's a general comment regarding this language, this general idea, that way if it's favorable, we can bring it back and get something moving on this.
You say residential only would be prohibited?
Yes.
So as long as they have some commercial and
Yes. So yeah, the idea being it has to at least have that mixed use component.
And that is their plan.
Is there anything, or will there be anything written in to any of the ordinances that would prevent a business from being in the building, staying in the building, and then once all the renovations were done, just packing up and moving to somewhere else?
No, there would not be, not in this draft. That would be a challenge. A corporation can go bankrupt at any state. I mean, Chapter 711 provisions are allowed for them. I don't know, in the event you would go through bankruptcy, I mean, Mr. Marsh could probably get into it more, but generally it's bankruptcy's got to he's got to be at a higher value in terms of proceeding as opposed to making sure they're compliant with their B&O. Having said all of that, though, there could be a provision included to at least incentivize or encourage an agreement to be made with the building owner and the tenant to ensure that there would be some kind of continuity after construction. One problem, assuming you do the construction correctly, hopefully your land rents are going to be going up for your tenants. So that would potentially be a problem where you had a good thing going with a low value property, but now all of a sudden it's being assessed at a good value and you might have to go. That would just be a natural market condition, but it's something we can, if desired, we can try and put some provisions in to ensure that that's not happening.
How would this affect, or could it be used in tandem with the recent tax credits we passed, the brewery tax credits that,
Well, so those
something that they could double
Stack.
down on, or stack,
Well, those tax credits affect structures that were previously used as office spaces or were vacant or condemned.
I mean, doesn't the Empire kind of fall into that already?
It does, but this affects that construction activity as opposed to the building owner having to pay B&O for rental activity or the tenant having to pay B&O based on just general activity. It adds to the stack.
So I had a question. So essentially, if someone wants to rehab a building or do some reconstruction of a building, if it's mixed use, even if they're redeveloping also parts of it to be residential, then that whole redevelopment project would get a B&O tax credit?
It would. based, but there's the provision that goes in with regards to that 3%.
Okay.
So it would, with the caveat that the building improvement, the building permit application and all the work associated with that would be triggering the B&O is going to have to comport to that, at least some form of non-residential. So if you're just doing work on the residential, I'm not sure if this would necessarily work out for them. I'll have to check with Richard though, and that's something we can work to make sure is, if council wants, to make sure that it is only going to commercial activity
Well, I
or
mean,
related to commercial.
I mean, I don't mind either way. I just want to know if there is a, if there's like, okay, if you're doing redevelopment on a downtown building in order to get this credit, 30% of it has to be used for commercial redevelopment. 70% could be used for residential redevelopment. I mean, we could use a few more residents in Clarksburg. So I don't mind. I just want to know if you guys have a plan of what those percentages would look like.
Would zoning protect us on the backside of that anyways?
Well, we're talking about the B&O tax credit on reconstruction.
Well, no, but zoning.
Zoning generally would in the Quality Hill district, but the downtown central business district zoning is very open-ended. Glen Elk is more piecemeal, but it still allows for, you still have the ability, and I'd have to go back just to make sure, but to my knowledge, you still have the ability to do a multifamily structure in the Glen Elk historic district. So that's like Glen Elk 1, not Glen Elk 2.
So I'm saying, could we use zoning to, we change,
Yeah, I mean, we should be, to utilize your land use regulation properly, yes, you should be directing what types of land use you want to happen in which locations. As it relates to the B&O tax, this is just an incentive as opposed to the opposite, the hammer. With regards to the percentage, we don't have one. If that's something, I mean, I can see the sense in that, and it's something we can provide for further discussion.
Anybody else have questions? Martin?
Digesting.
Mark? Will?
So my piece.
It's good stuff though. I mean, thank you for working on this.
So you're just saying if it's the 3% of the assessed value, the contractor pays no B&O whatsoever, correct? If the developer is developing more than 3% value?
Yes.
So if there's suggestions on how you want it, what you think it should be, that's why I was coming to a work session. If you believe it should be different than the 3%, that's fine as well.
Yeah, the idea behind the 3% was to avoid a situation where a developer would be stringing along low value improvement projects to not have to pay B&O tax.
Well, I'm just trying to think. I mean, I'm assuming if a developer is going to put any amount of money into that building to improve it, they're going to most likely utilize every tax advantage they can, because they're going to majority be a big capital investment. I just need to think about that a little bit more. I don't know. I mean, they have a lot of tax advantages at their disposal, but I don't know. I got to digest it a little more.
This would be a pretty radical change. Generally, municipalities, especially in West Virginia, you make money off of B&O taxes. We also recognize that the city of Clarksburg's their building stock is here, but nobody in those buildings. So we've been trying to get creative in figuring out ways to incentivize either occupancy or development.
And this is just for the central business district?
And so it'd be for the downtown historic district, which is the central business district from 6th Street, not on not on Cap side, but on sort of 6th Street to 2nd Street right there. It encompasses Washington all the way to the creek, with the more like Washington to Hughes. We can provide a mapping of those historic districts, but it's the downtown, Glen Elk, and Quality Hill.
Our goal when we're working through this is to try to encourage redevelopment of some of these vacant and or dilapidated buildings in the effort to revitalize downtown, which is linked to your comprehensive plan that the last council put in place.
Would it benefit us at all to meet with Chestnut too, so we can get that old building across from Go Mart, the old church?
Well,
Historical building.
So
It is.
that's not a contributing or pivotal structure in a historic district. So it doesn't, that one in particular, unfortunately, the Constitution for West Virginia doesn't really permit eminent domain for economic development purposes, but that would be a perfect property because, yeah, I could see the benefit in possibly having a wider scale project, but as it was now, we wanted to, with historic structures and the real danger that some of these structures have because they're not being used, that was where the emphasis was placed. But
I mean, to Jerry's point, I mean, you can add B and then make B, C, C, D, D, and E, but you could add and just say any other structure utilizing historic tax credits, and then if somebody were to use it, that
Yeah.
qualifies them for this program.
So if it's outside of the area, then they
Because,
still
I mean,
qualify.
right.
Right. That makes
Yeah.
sense. We can make that change.
Yeah.
And I just had one more question. So I heard you briefly speak about, once the development is done, one of the challenges is going to be that, that property is going to be, reassessed.
Yeah.
And that could sometimes, cause someone to go out of business because now they're having to pay personal property taxes that are significantly higher because the value of the property is higher now since it's been redeveloped. But you did say in there that, potentially down the road, we could possibly do some incentives or come up with something to help that. What would that look like?
well,
I'm not sure that's exactly what
Okay.
John was saying. It's more of when you're renting, if you're in a building that's the value isn't very high, your rent is probably going to be lower. Once it's renovated, that current tenant, the rent could be raised to reflect the fact that the building's renovated, you're going to be busier. If you had a new tenant in there, you could have higher rent.
Okay, maybe I misunderstood that. So.
Any other questions from Mr. Whitmore?
So the backside of that is not great, but also we would still have a renovated building that's
Yes.
more.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I support that.
I mean, ultimately, I think any improvements we do is just positive, but bottom line is any of these improvements then, once they are completed, is having a positive impact to the TIF.
Yeah.
Which I think more importantly to us as well.
Thank you. We will
Okay.
bring it back at a further date once we have it all, a couple of those amendments made. Thank you.
Excuse me? Okay. D, land bank update?
So all of council, but in particular, Councilmember Worth wanted a land bank update, so I'm going to try to bring these as much as I can. So our next steps is to draft bylaws for the land reuse agency. I got a copy of those from Mr. Whitmore today, so I'll be sending them out for council's review. We need to activate the LRA by having a published meeting and allowing the agency to vote to approve bylaws, elect officers, and initiate development program planning. We need to begin the home rule application updates to allow the LRA update to occur at the same time as the city audit. And in the event that the LRA meets before 2024, a report will have to be drafted explaining the LRA proposed programs and activities to be sent to the West Virginia Housing Development Fund. So really, this update, that was a whole lot of information. It's moving forward. We won't be having a meeting in 2023. It will happen in 2024, but everything is moving forward.
Okay. So let me ask you this. So we're not,
John?
we're not purchasing properties until we solve that problem, right?
No, we submitted to home rule. I believe, John, in regards to purchasing properties, we don't have to have all this in place before we purchase the properties, do we?
So the home rule issue deals with the audit. That's just as a result, the city is on a fiscal year, July 1 to June 30. This way we can have the audit be in sync because per the statutory language, the LRA operates on a calendar year. It's a weird quirk, and it's something we can get worked out. But to have the land reuse agency act, we have to have a meeting with the land reuse agency to actually have a priority to establish all the bylaws and such before. I would think we would probably want to do that before we actually begin purchasing properties. Now,
The list just came out and we don't think the actual land is gonna be for sale until 2024 anyway. They've switched who the selling body is, so everything's behind by a few months, so the timing works out quite well. There's also a number of properties that are on our demo and dilapidated property list that will be rolled into that as well.
and a large number of the properties that the state would like for us to purchase, and by that I mean we're working with the West Virginia Land Stewardship Corporation, and they are really there to assist with what are called the no bid or purgatory properties, the ones that have been on tax roll since at least 2020. We have a grouping of those already established from staff. So once we have the full tax rolls fully established of what's going to be available through the regular tax sale process, we'd have some additional information. But we're on track to meet the time requirements that are being provided to us by the state auditor's office.
Okay, fantastic.
I need a break. I'll be right back.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Mr. Whitmore.
Did he ask to be excused or he just?
That's a $200 fine.
We're up to 400 tonight.
Like my poker.
Let's go right to the land bank.
Oh,
Right to the land
Poker
bank.
and a poker.
I'll take her. We don't need them. We're good.
Gavel in. Let's go.
Hey, I don't think I'm gonna ride in the wheelbarrow tomorrow.
I'm not gonna do it anyway.
Oh.
Do it that way.
You decorate your front.
Yeah, it's gonna be noise and lights
Reindeer.
and
Yeah,
spend
bro.
too much money on it, just use what we have. I was coming in for the thing damage from my dog's story. They were on this last one. She so scared me.
Get thrown out.
My last one. In it?
Yeah.
Like it's like the example, my new card doesn't.
Yeah,
It doesn't
extra
have a-
present.
It doesn't have a cigarette lighter thing.
Oh.
It's got USB. C. So I can like the inflatables in the back of the truck. I don't know what to do.
Sorry about that. E, Clarksburg Harrison County TNR program.
Council member Hyman.
Mr. Hyman, I believe this is your,
Yeah, sorry, I didn't get these documents till last night. I've been so busy this week, and it was kind of on short notice when I saw that there was going to be a meeting this week, Thursday. So I attached some documents to the email, and I printed it out here for myself here, the West Virginia Spay Neuter Assistance Program. I think we've all heard from our constituents, we have a feral cat issue in Clarksburg. It's in every single neighborhood, and I'm hoping that we can do something to either, one, trap, neuter, release these animals that we can, or allow our citizens to apply for vouchers to have their own animals spayed and neutered. I think it could be great both ways, but I'm open to exploring it, and I hope we can get council support to maybe pass something if we get some more information from Tiffany and Brittany, if we can get some more funding through, whether it be federal or grants outside of West Virginia. But the state of West Virginia offers $25,000 to the project itself, but apparently from what I'm reading is that you'll never get $25,000, but that's like the max amount that they can do. But I was hoping we could probably put something into effect with the Harrison County Humane Society and Animal Control and allow other municipalities in the county to participate. That way, it's not going to burden us to do it ourselves. So I don't know. I'll entertain thoughts, I guess.
What's the cost to?
Well, in the attachment, there's actually a grant program, and it's not even a matching grant. So, like Council Member Hyman said, it's up to 25,000, but we could come up with a proposal to bring back to council after we speak to surrounding communities and see if everybody or some are willing to apply, each community, and pool that money together and come up with a proposal for a program to help alleviate this problem.
Should we not bring the county in on this?
That would be one of the
That's
people
my
we would talk
intentions.
to.
Or I hope we. Well, I'm hoping we could.
Yeah.
I know that Doddridge County actually had one, and I know people have taken advantage of that program, and they actually ship their animals to Charleston. Then they would be neutered, and then the cats would be brought back, and anybody can participate. It doesn't have to be animal control. It could be citizens of Doddridge County or West Union or whatever. And I would like to see it go either way. If it's something that Harrison County Animal Control can do, and at the same time, citizens here in the city could say, "Look, I got an animal problem here. How can I get these cats neutered and spayed for cheap?" If it's something that we could have a voucher for, through this program, I think it would just be a huge step in the right direction.
Can we work with Pierpont? They have the new animal clinic that's coming
That's a great
downtown.
idea. I like it.
I mean, shipping them to Charleston, it's almost like the mail. It's like I mail something to my neighbor. It's got to go to Charleston, come back.
Sure. From what I understand, from my understanding, and I do have a little bit of experience with friends and acquaintances who had used that program, is they pick them up, they assemble them in the morning, and they bring them back the same day. And it was the person, they load them up in a van, and they crates, and they bring them back to West Union. Well, I don't even know if the program's still in effect. This was several years ago. But the website itself had programs all over the area. But to answer your question, from my knowledge, neutering is cheaper than spaying. Obviously, spaying it's an operation. I think with it's kind of outpatient to have. I won't go into the details, but yes. So but like I said, people come to me and they say, "Well, what are you going to do about the cats? I got cats there in my yard." And obviously, it's not going to be an overnight process. It's going to take some time to control these colonies that we have. And I know Glen Elk, my community, Northview, and other communities, it's a problem.
There used to be a big problem at the Waldo.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, a local business owner used to handle those and take them get spayed and neutered. He paid out his own.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Is it something where you could partner with like local vet clinics?
From my understanding and the different programs that they had on the website, this WBSNP program, they listed county by county all the different nonprofits, veterinary clinics that were participating in.
There's a huge variety.
Yeah.
I mean, and it says right here that government entities can apply for it. So, I mean, it's something that I'd like to see happen. And, I think it's kind of like the demo program to a certain extent. Obviously, some properties have to be demoed. But some, obviously we're using taxpayer money to demolish, it's the same thing. Do you want to have your taxpayer dollars go to destroy animals? I mean, that's, I'm sure there's people in Clarksburg who don't want that to happen. I'm not saying everybody, but, I think it's a good argument to say, can we save some money? Possibly. Can we save the lives of animals? Probably. So, I mean, it's something I'd like to see happen. And if we can get some direction from management staff, maybe we can move forward with it.
Any other questions?
Yeah, definitely like to reach out to Pierpont.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great idea. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't even think of that. I think
Very
that's
good,
a great idea.
Silver bullet ideas, I have.
I like it. Yeah, I mean, if they can turn them out, and train kids at the same time to do it.
Hey,
Let's
there
do
you
it.
go. Anybody else?
Good stuff, there, Will.
Anybody want to call for an adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Have a second? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all. Have a good weekend. Don't forget, tomorrow's First Friday. And if there's a parade tomorrow.
Yes.